1800s were a big century, and I think we owe a lot to the 1800s. There were a lot of things invented in the 1800s that impact us and the things that we do. You might recognize a couple things. The telephone was invented in the 1800s, and the telegraph, the steam engine, locomotive, the rifle was invented in the 1800s, the cotton gin in the 1800s, the light bulb and electricity. Lots of big things were invented in the 1800s. Not that other centuries were not important. Lots of other things were invented in other centuries that we owe a lot to. But lots of things have been invented over time that we benefit from. So I wonder, what's one of your favorite inventions? What are the inventions that is the most important inventions that you think of? What do you think is one of the most important inventions? So as you think about that, turn to somebody next to you and tell them what you think is one of the most important inventions ever. Could be recent, could be long ago, but what's an important invention to you? Okay, what do you think? A couple ideas? Electricity? Car, the automobile? Telephone?
Plumbing.
What's that, G? Air conditioning. Getting right home, aren't you?
Indoor plumbing.
Indoor plumbing. That's a good one. Yeah. Toilet paper. Transistor. Yeah. Photography. Captures the past and the future. Antibiotics. Phone. Vaccinations. One of my family members is a doctor, said vaccinations. That was his favorite invention ever. Yeah, tons of inventions that change our lives. Tons of inventions and these inventions, they make a difference for us. And I wonder, when we think about our faith, does our faith make that same kind of difference in our life that some of these inventions have made? I mean, some of these inventions have just changed everything about how we live. And will our faith do the same thing and make that kind of a difference? If there was ever a question that the Gospel of John addresses, it's that question. Does our faith make a difference? And how can our faith make a difference? Certainly, John is talking about faith in Jesus Christ. How does our faith in Jesus Christ make a difference? One of the reasons I like the Gospel of John is because it's so simple. The book can be divided in half. And the first half is all about pictures and demonstration and evidence to show that faith makes a difference. And then the second half is all about the details and how it's actually possible that happens. And every story and every discussion that Jesus has and everything that happens in the first half is all about these pictures of, wow, that's the difference that faith can make. And the second half is, well, how does this really happen? The last story in that first half of the Gospel of John, in chapter 11, is the story of Lazarus. And this might be the best story to describe how faith in Christ makes a difference. So let's revisit the story. We're going to read it through, but I want you to look for something as we do read through the story. I want you to look through what were Jesus' reactions to different people throughout the event. And he has several. So think about, how is Jesus reacting to different people throughout the story? All right, let's go. A man named Lazarus was sick. He lived in Bethany with his sisters, Mary and Martha. So the two sisters sent a message to Jesus telling him, Lord, your dear friend is very sick. So although Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for the next 2 days. Finally, he said to his disciples, let's go back to Judea. Some other things happen in the story. We're not going to read them all because it would add another 10 minutes to what we're doing. It's a long story, but here's where we pick it up. When Jesus arrived in Bethany, he was told that Lazarus had already been in his grave for 4 days. Bethany was only a few miles down the road from Jerusalem, and many of the people had come to console Martha and Mary in their loss. When Mary got word that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him. But Mary stayed in the house. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus told her, your brother will rise again. Yes, Martha said, he will rise when everyone else rises at the last day. Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live, even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never, ever die. Do you believe this, Martha? Yes, Lord, she told him. I have always believed you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world from God. Then she returned to Mary. She called Mary aside from the mourners and told her, the teacher is here and wants to see you. So Mary immediately went to him. When the people who were at the house consoling Mary saw her leave so hastily, they followed her there. When Mary arrived and saw Jesus, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping and saw the other people wailing with her, a deep anger welled up within him, and he was deeply troubled. Where have you put him? He asked them. They told him, Lord, come and see. Then Jesus wept. The people who were standing nearby said, see how much he loved him? But some said, this man healed a blind man. Couldn't he have kept Lazarus from dying? Jesus was still angry as he arrived at the tomb, a cave with a stone rolled across its entrance. We're going to pause there until we get to the end of the story. But did you catch reactions that Jesus had? What were the reactions that Jesus had to people? Anger.
Not with Martha there.
Not with Martha. Okay, but he was angry. He was angry. So his reaction was angry. He wept. He was troubled. And was he angry again? Yeah, he was still angry. So he was angry, he wept, he was troubled, and he was angry again. Now, let's be sure why Jesus was angry and why he wept. Because some people in the story, as John describes it, actually miss why Jesus wept, for example. And it's easy to miss why he was troubled. It doesn't seem that there's any evidence that Jesus was angry with Martha or Mary. I mean, they come to him, they have a conversation, they ask him questions, they wish he was there sooner, and they have an exchange, and Jesus hopes they believe. But there's no real evidence that Jesus is angry with them. There's nothing to make him angry necessarily with them and what they did. So it kind of leaves it open about why he's angry and troubled. Well, then, later on, Jesus weeps. And the people respond in a couple ways. They say, oh, look at him, he's weeping. And they say that there's two reasons why they think Jesus is weeping. One was because their friend, Lazarus, his friend Lazarus, had died. And certainly, that's a reason to weep. But as we move on in the story, that may not be the case of why Jesus wept. They also say that Jesus may have wept because he had just healed a blind man, but his friend Lazarus had died. And what they're saying is, Jesus had the power to heal this blind guy, but now his friend has died. And that's bigger than healing blindness. And maybe he's weeping because he just can't heal from something as big as death. So they're thinking, well, Jesus is weeping for all these different reasons. And then we get to the end of this section, and Jesus is what again? He's angry. He's still angry. So what if the anger and the weeping and the anger and the trouble, they're all the same thing? But Jesus is weeping because he's angry. He's troubled because he's angry. He's angry and troubled about something. I've loved coaching William and Madeline's soccer teams for a number of years. And it's been a load of fun to watch them play and to watch some other kids play. And one of the neat things that we've really enjoyed about their soccer teams is being able to meet lots of these other families and these other kids who are playing. And we've realized that we very quickly, at the beginning of every season, seem to enjoy these kids, and we want to support and encourage these kids as much as we can. We grow close to these kids very quickly. And so we're kind of on their side. We're their champions, and we're their supporters, and we do whatever we can to help these kids. Well, there was a moment in one of William's team's games last year. And it was a rougher than usual game. There was a little bit of fouling and pushing and tripping going on, a little bit more than usual. And I had spoken to the referee at halftime about the problem. And I had said, look, your job is to keep this game in order and to keep these kids respectful in how they play, because these kids need to be safe and have fun. And I wanted to make sure he understood how I felt about this. So the game continued on in the second half, and the kids were playing hard. I mean, their hearts were in it. Both teams were playing really well. Both teams were scoring and defending well. I mean, all the fans, all the parents on the sideline were cheering just as hard as the kids were playing. I mean, everybody was into this game. And then right in front of where we were, right at midfield, one of our players went down. He got pushed. And it was so obvious. And it was so blatant. And he didn't get up right away. He laid on the ground. Eventually he did get up. But when he was on the ground, I ran on the field. And all the other players stopped. And guess who else came over? The referee came over. And I let the referee have it. I just said, you cannot let this happen. I talked to you about this before. These kids are pushing. They are doing things they should not be doing. You cannot let this happen. It's your job to be in charge of this game. And I tell you, I was angry. Because the things that were happening should not have been happening. Jesus, I think, was angry because the things that were happening shouldn't have been happening. The things that were happening all around Jesus were all things that had to do only with death. Their friend had died, and they were sad. Absolutely. But everything that was happening was making them overcome with death. They were weeping, they were wailing, they were sad, they were calling in all these mourners in this tradition that Jesus knew would not only last for that day, but would last the whole week, and even months, and even years, with all these milestones of this official mourning that they had. They had all these things that they would do to mourn and to focus on death. I mean, no wonder Jesus was angry. Because he was looking at the situation and all they could see was just the death stuff. And Jesus is thinking, no, there's more than this. Because Jesus just doesn't want us to be focused on the tragedy at the moment or the thing that is happening or the thing that makes us sad. For sure it makes us sad, and Jesus gets that. But Jesus knows that there's something beyond that. There's something more. And when these people that Jesus is trying to teach about faith, and he's been trying to teach them about faith, as John describes, for the entire first half of his book, when it comes to the end of that, at the midpoint of the book, and Jesus has been trying to teach this all along, Jesus is looking at them saying, I'm angry because the faith that you have, it isn't making a bit of difference. And does Jesus want our faith to make a difference? Well, yeah. I mean, he wants it to make an enormous difference. Our faith is here so that it can make a difference in us, in any situation we face. Any tragedy, any joy, anything. Our faith makes a difference for how we act. Does our faith make a difference beyond just the time that we gather on Sundays? Well, it should. And Jesus sure hopes it does. I mean, does it make an impact when we go to work and when we talk with coworkers? Does it make a difference when we're in the classroom with other kids and taking tests and playing on the playground? Does it make a difference with how we talk to our friends and how we treat them? Does it make a difference in all these different areas of our life? I mean, Jesus longs that our faith makes a difference. And if it doesn't, we have some work to do. If our faith is not making the kind of difference that Jesus wants us to, we have some work to do. We need to be working on our own, to be talking with God, to being able to understand God and understand how God would react in the situations we're in. We need to be working together with each other to find out how can we grow in our faith together. It's not just me or one of us, it's all of us working together to grow in faith together. Jesus wants our faith to make a difference. Now, here's the risk. And here's the risk if our faith doesn't make a difference. The risk is we might end up like some of the people in Jesus' story. We might end up like the mourners. You know what a mourner is, right? Somebody who complains all the time. Somebody who's negative all the time, even when there's nothing to be negative about. You know these people, right? You can picture some of these people. I mean, they talk about, and all they talk about are things that are negative, and they complain, and they're not pleasant to be around. That's a mourner. They're mourning what is. And God didn't create us to be mourners. On the flip side, what Jesus seems to be pointing to is Jesus wants us to be rejoicers. Not fake rejoicers that we just paste a smile on our faces and act happy when everything is happening, but true, deep rejoicers that we can see that our faith can make a difference, that there's something beyond now, and there's something bigger that God has in store than just whatever is happening. God longs for us, and God made us to be rejoicers. I'd like to share with you a couple of my least favorite Bible verses that have to do with this. One is, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, and everything give thanks, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Is that on anybody's not favorite list? How about, but rejoice inasmuch as you participate in the sufferings of Christ. That's a fun one. But Peter and Paul, who wrote these, and then John and Jesus, who we're talking about, and Lazarus, they're talking about this, and they meant this. To rejoice is a good thing. To rejoice in any circumstances, even in suffering. This is a beautiful thing. This is a good thing, and this is something that when our faith makes a difference, it allows us to be rejoicers. God didn't make us to be mourners. God made us to be rejoicers. So how does the story end? We stopped short of the end. So here's the end. They rolled the stone to the tomb aside, and then Jesus looked up to heaven and said, Father, thank you for hearing me. You always hear me. But I said it out loud for the sake of all these people standing here, so that they will believe you sent me. Then Jesus shouted, Lazarus, come out! And the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound in grave clothes, his face wrapped in a headcloth. Jesus told him, unwrap him, and let him go. The kind of faith that Jesus wants us to have is a faith that gives attention to life, not a faith that just dwells on death. The kind of faith that has hope for the things beyond what's happening, not just focusing on the disappointment and discouragement of what so often is. This is what it means to be a rejoicer, to be able to see beyond what is, not because we're faking it, but because we trust that God has more in store, and God can do things beyond us. My hope is that we become more and more rejoicers. Let's pray.